geceler değerli izleyicilerimiz. Adnan Oktar'la sohbetlere başlıyoruz inşallah. Adnan Bey hoş geldiniz.
Hoş bulduk, siz de hoş geldiniz.
Hoş bulduk.
Dünya sevgi birliğiyle güzelleşecek diyelim. Dünya sevgi birliğiyle güzelleşecek.
Let us make today's hashtag World will beautify with union of love. World will beautify with union of love. Today's hashtag on Twitter. There are certain claims that 51 people have committed suicide in prison. This is really a high number. There's something abnormal here. We need to look into this matter. And what is more, there needs to be certain discourse on this topic, because committing suicide is definitely haram, is unlawful. Nobody could ever just bring out any benefit from such suicide. If there were any benefits, actually, such a sinful action would never be carried out. There's something unacceptable there. Russia, Iran, and Turkey have just attended in a meeting bringing together the foreign ministries of the three countries. They have been decided to carry out peace talks about Syria. A total of 37,500 civilians were just evacuated from Aleppo. Lavrov stated that this effort would be just completed very soon, and he stated that what is most important is not to ask for a regime change in Syria, but what is most important is to carry out the integrity and independence of the country and struggle against terrorism. Syria, Iran, and Turkey have together in a meeting in Moscow. The foreign ministries attending this meeting have been decided to carry out peace talks for Syria. The evacuation in Aleppo is just going on. A total of 37,500 people have been evacuated. And Lavrov said that this would be just completed in a few days. And Lavrov also mentioned that what is prior for the three countries is that there should be no regime change in Syria, but the integrity, the unity of the country should be preserved, and the best effort should be against eradicating terrorism. It is really very important to provide the integrity of Syrian territory, because the British deep state is just asking for the division of Syria. Such a decision is definitely a severe blow on them. It is very important that we have been just mentioning about all these, and we have made a great impact on the policies of Turkey, because right from the beginning, this was not the case. It appeared as if people were looking for the regime change in Syria, and also at all circumstances, people would be just looking for, they were just claiming that we should perform prayers in the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, and there were certain assumptions that Syria would be divided. People would be interpreting the case like this before, but right now it is the first instance that these foreign ministers in the meeting, they're asking for the integrity of Syria, and the Turkish government is asking for the unity of Syria, the integrity of the entire Syrian country. But actually, it was assumed that there were certain plans for sharing the land, sharing the territories of Syria after dividing the country. But now this is clarified. There's definitely no claim for dividing Syria. Yes, I'm listening to. The research is going on, the inquiry is going on to find out if the person who carried out the assassination against the Russian ambassador has any connections with the Gülen community. It was stated that Fethullah Gülen hates Putin, and he never accepted any presents from the country. And Gülen turned out to be an enemy against Putin. And if after this inquisition about this assassination of the Russian ambassador turns out to be related with Fethullah Gülen, then Putin would be asking for Gülen to be given into the hands of Turkey. Well, the legal evidence will provide the true answers.
Tarz üstüne tarz yapmış.
Şık olan sizsiniz maşallah.
Aferin. Biz mehter.
Türkiye gazetesinde arka arkaya İngilizlerin devletinin oyunlarına dikkat çeken yazılar çıkıyor Adnan Bey. Bugün de Ahmet Sağırlı
In the Turkey newspaper,
İngilizlerin devletinin ve Chatham House'un
certain
Dünya
articles are being
Savaşı'ndaki
published which are
propaganda
making an
yöntemlerinden
emphasis
yapılmış.
to the
İngilizlerin
British
İkinci
deep
Dünya
state.
Savaşı'nda halkın içgüdüsüne hitap edilmesi, sloganlara ve tekrarlara önem
One of
verilmesi,
the
düşmanın toplumun
journalists, one of the authors in the Turkey newspaper, he just wrote about the Chatham House and the perpetrations carried out by the British deep state, what kind of propaganda methods they have been just employing. These have been brought to agenda by Ahmet Sağırlı.
Osmanlı'nın yiğit
I can show his photograph.
İngilizlerin devletine aslanlar gibi
A great effort. He's one of the lion-hearted sons of the Ottoman Empire.
Maşallah 150'yi geçti
And he's just standing so bravely against the British deep state. Definitely their names will be written in history. The number of authors who have written about the British deep state has come up to 150, and it's growing more. Because in the last 200 years, no person could ever just bring up the British deep state. At the time of Abdülhamid, even during the Turkish Republic, the history of the Turkish Republic, nobody could ever expose the British deep state. But with our efforts, they have come to realize the evil behind the British deep state, and their end is about to come.
İnşallah hocam.
Evet. Geliyor diyoruz. Münafık konusunda konuştunuz.
Evet hocam.
Münafık terminatör gibidir, böyle tahrip edicidir.
We have talked about the hypocrites.
Yani deccali bir ruha sahip.
The hypocrites are like the Terminator. They just destroy. Because that is their inclination with the system of Dajjal. Since the Satan is a part of their souls, they want to destroy everything. They want to destroy people, they want to destroy faith, they want to destroy the Quran, they want to destroy love, they want to destroy possessions, belongings, they want to destroy love and respect. The hypocrite wants to destroy everything. And the hypocrite is the opposite of everything.
En büyük hedef olarak elçiyi görür. Peygamberleri görür. Yani Allah yolunda veliler.
And the hypocrite just targets the prophet and also the messengers of God and the saintly people. For example, at time of Bediüzzaman, the hypocrites were just targeting him so immensely. All those armies of the hypocrites, they just turned against Bediüzzaman. Although they were in trouble themselves, they just turned against the Bediüzzaman at that time. And they received their response. They were retributed by God. God sent all kinds of troubles upon them. In Surah Nisa, verse 19,
Millet düz yolda gidiyor ya. Görevi tahrip ya. Yolu tahrip ediyor. Yolu şaşırtıp saptıracağım diyor. Mesela dümdüz yolu eğri hale getiriyor. Tahrip görevi olduğu için.
For example, a person is just going on the straight path. The hypocrite just destroys that path and makes it crooked.
En mühim görevlerinden biri de huzuru tahriptir.
And just destroys the peace and tranquility of people. And the hypocrite tries to cause all kinds of commotion and disturbance on people. The hypocrite wants to cause unrest. But when he's doing that, actually, he doesn't act explicitly. On the contrary, the hypocrite pretends as if it's acting in a normal course of events. For instance, when it's trying to sway people from the truth, the hypocrite just pretends as if he's acting with independence and freedom. And Bediüzzaman states that the hypocrites, they just try to pretend as if they seek freedoms, as if they seek liberties. And that was the same case with the French Revolution. For instance, in the name of liberation, in the name of freedoms, they make propaganda of all kinds of perversion, immorality, and homosexuality.
Adama diyorsun ki sen tahribat yapma, rezil çıkartma. Biz diyor fesadı düzeltiyoruz.
For example, you tell this person, don't destroy, don't annihilate. But the hypocrite just responds saying that we are correcting people. We are calling them to the straight path. And when you ask the hypocrite, where did you get this idea? The hypocrite brings out evidence from the Quran. The hypocrite is not sincere. The hypocrite always plays games. And you had also described that somebody was again just trying to give an image as if he was together with the prophets, and he was taking some part from his way. And you had also stated that the hypocrite would use health reasons, for instance, claiming that he would not want to go out to war. For instance, the hypocrite claims, "You will just destroy my health. You will make my blood pressure go up. You will make me sick." And the hypocrite just says, "If I go to war, then I could be killed because I don't know how to fight." So the hypocrite always tries to make use of his health in order to bring out excuses to carry out his perfidy. The hypocrite is definitely an evil one because, for instance, at the time of the prophet Moses, they are together with him, they are eating all kinds of beautiful food, manna and quail, but just to cause commotion and unrest amongst the believers, the hypocrites, they start asking for garlic, lentil, and many other things just to cause this disturbance among the Muslims. They ask for garlic, and then they ask for another thing. This means that the hypocrite never stops demanding things. The hypocrite always requests things from believers. That is just to cause that commotion and unrest, because there is anarchy in the soul of the hypocrite. So just based on certain legal justifications, lawful justifications, the hypocrite claims that he wants many other things from believers. For instance, God commands them to slaughter a cow. It is so simple. You would just take one cow and slaughter this in the way of God. But just to cause this commotion, just to cause this immorality, the hypocrite just says what kind of a cow they need to slaughter. They are not pleased with the commandment of God. They are also not pleased with the commandment of the messenger of God. And because of the infiltration of Satan, the hypocrite just pretends as if the messenger of God, he is not just with his descriptions. And the prophet Moses, he just describes what kind of a cow they need to slaughter. They want to take the time of Muslims. They want to take the time of the prophets. They want to give an image as if the prophet is not wise, as if the God is unjust. And this is how the hypocrite tries to give a good image to himself. That is the reason why the hypocrite is always causing commotion, unrest, and disturbance. And up to his mind, the hypocrite wants to give an image as if the prophet cannot think properly. This is how the hypocrite causes such sedition and mischief among the believers.
Düşünüyoruz diyor. Dolayısıyla biz haşa Allah'tan daha üstünüz diyor. Münafıkta kafa budur. Yani müthiş ahlaksız bir mahluktur.
For example, the hypocrite says they cannot go out to war because their houses are open, their families are in need. And this is how the insidious mindset of the hypocrites are just causing this mischief. For instance, when we look at the coup attempt, we again see that the hypocrites took part. They keep on carrying out their evil, insidious plans. They just shot the Russian ambassador from his back. He's an innocent person. He did not commit any crime. He did not commit any murder. And you don't even know him. And you say that you would protect him. And you say that you are hosting him and he's your guest. And he feels himself secure there. But you're just going back and you just treacherously attack him from behind, and you are assassinating him. And then he's just shouting out loud. That is definitely an incident, a hypocritical incident, an evil, treacherous attack of a hypocrite.
Yani normal bir mümin pek güç yetiremez. Bunun hakkından, böyle alçakların hakkından, münafıkların hakkından.
This is the method that hypocrites employ. Such hypocrites could only be overcome by means of the prophets and by means of the saintly people. They are so treacherous. They have caused such disturbance on our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There were 300 hypocrites at the time of the prophets, and just to prevent any sedition, just to prevent
baş
any
belası olmamaları
mischief,
için, fitne çıkmaması için gidip namazını kılıyor. Hazreti Ömer kılma diyor Peygamberimize.
the Prophet goes and
Kılma bunun namazını diyor.
performs prayers during the funeral of
için gidip kılıyor.
the hypocrites.
Şimdi namazını kılınca ya diyor biz nur gibi Müslümanız. Bak gördünüz diyor Peygamber geldi namazımızı.
Hazreti Ömer tells the Prophet not to go and perform prayers at his funeral, but the Prophet does not listen to the words of Hazreti Ömer. So just to prevent sedition, just to prevent mischief, the Prophet performed prayers. The hypocrite is so evil. The hypocrite has caused trouble in every era.
Binlerce, milyonlarca münafık şu an felç olmuş vaziyette.
There are thousands and millions of hypocrites who have been paralyzed. All those millions of hypocrites, they have been paralyzed. There are hypocrites inside of us, there are hypocrites in other religious communities, and they are being exploited by the British deep state. And we have paralyzed those hypocrites. We have made them neutralized. They have been, and they will be. They will have no effect. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 119, God teaches, I seek refuge in God from the accursed Satan. I will lead them astray and fill them with false hopes.
Ya bozmak, kırmak, yıkmak münafığın özelliğidir. Bak onlara kesin olarak davarların kulaklarını
This is the destruction, this is the annihilation and termination that the hypocrites carry out. I will command them and they will cut off cattle's ears. This means that the hypocrite is so insane and even destroys animals, even brings out devastation against living things. I will command them and they will change God's creation. For example, normal way of speaking is not lying. Normal way of living is honesty. However, the hypocrite just distorts all these truths and causes all kinds of perfidy, evil, and immorality. Anyone who takes Satan as his protector in place of God, this is an indication of the members of the British deep state. Anyone who takes Satan as his protector in place of God has clearly lost everything. This means that God will devastate them. God will make them lose everything because God is the creator of all things.
Sırtını çevirip gittiğinde, uygun bir yere gitti mi de, yeryüzünde bozgunculuk çıkarmaya bak, bozgunculuk. Şimdi bir bütünlük, düzgünlük var değil mi? Bak bozgunculuk demek bozma. Münafığın özelliğidir ya bozma bak.
In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 205, when he leaves you, he goes about the earth corrupting it, destroying. This means that the hypocrite just corrupts societies, corrupts animals, corrupts possessions, corrupts human beings. The hypocrite is never pleased with healthy people. The hypocrite is not pleased with a healthy community. For instance, when we look at the system of the Dajjal, they want to destroy the health of entire humanity by destroying generations, by eradicating races. They are hostile against the Turkish race. We see that the British deep state, they have so much hostility against the Turkish race because we see that they want to eradicate the entire Turkish race. This is what Darwin has spoken out. He says that Turks are an inferior race. They are animals and they haven't yet become human beings. And Darwin says the European races, they have completed their evolution. They are human beings right now. But there are certain races, just like the Turkish race, who are still intermediary living beings, who are inferior races, and they are still animals. So we have to eradicate them all. We have to annihilate them all. This is what Darwin has said. So following him, the members of the British deep state, who are the prime ministers and presidents of that British deep state, they have spoken the same words. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 205, when he leaves you, he goes about the earth corrupting it, destroying crops and animals. This means that the hypocrites, they even destroy crops, animals. They are enemies against the plants. They have just distorted the chromosomes of plants, and the crops have been destroyed by means of such implementations. And that is another insanity of the British deep state. For instance,
Nesil bozuldu.
corn, wheat, all these crops, they have been just destroyed, and all kinds of diseases like cancer and ulcers, these have emerged. This is another perpetration of the Dajjal, destroying crops and animals. This means when the crops are destroyed, then the animals are destroyed, and the ones who eat those animals, they have certain sicknesses and ailments. Everyone knows that the genetics of certain plants and crops are changed, destroyed, modified, and this is a terrible threat, and the entire world is speaking about it. This is another application of Dajjal. God does not love corruption. God does not love corruption. God is not pleased with those ones who aim at destroying things. In Surah Hud, verse 85, do not diminish people's goods, and do not go about the earth corrupting it. These are the hypocrites. What does corrupting mean? Corrupt things. How do you diminish people's goods? You destroy people's goods, and you diminish its value. This is how the hypocrites destroy goods, destroy certain things. This is mentioned in Surah Hud, verse 85. Do not diminish people's goods, and do not go about the earth corrupting it. Such destruction and diminishing and devaluing things, these are the particular attributes of the hypocrites. Darwin says, this is the philosophy of the hypocrites. As a requirement of this philosophy, Darwin says, this fight related with natural selection. In the progress of civilizations, we know that this kind of a fight will be bringing so much benefits. So Darwin says natural selection just improves civilizations. I will prove this to you. This is what Darwin says. Just imagine that a few hundred years ago, Europe was invaded by Turks. So who is on the mind of Darwin? Turks are on his mind. He's not pleased that the Turks have conquered European countries. And Darwin says the European nations, they have been under the risk of the Turkish invasions. And he says, we are laughing at this now. Those civilized races who are the Europeans, they have just won over the Turkish barbarity. And this is how Darwin names the Turkish people to be barbarous. And Darwin's books are being a part of the Turkish school curricula. And Darwin says, 150 years later, he says he's looking into the future, and he says certain inferior races. He names about the Turkish nation to be an inferior race, may God forbid. And Darwin says there will be certain civilized races, just like the British Anglo-Saxon race, says Darwin. They will be eliminating such inferior races. And Darwin says he sees that that will happen. So do you understand the philosophy of the British deep state?
Nisa suresi 2'de murdar, kirli olanla temiz olanı değiştirmeyin.
For example, in Surah Nisa verse 2, God teaches,
Müslümana pis olanı bırakır. Müslümana pislik saçmak, Müslümana
hypocrites just take the clean things to themselves, and the hypocrites give filthy things to Muslims. This is how the hypocrites ask. They just touch places with their filthy hands. They just spread their dirty clothes here and there, or they want to take the Muslims to dirty places. This is why God teaches in Surah Nisa verse 2, I seek refuge in God from accursed Satan. Do not substitute bad things for good. This is how the hypocrites act. They want to introduce and present dirty things, filth to believers. That is how we find in the way of living of homosexuals. They just throw their things here and there. They enter into their beds with their shoes. They don't take care of themselves. They are not meticulous in their way of living. They are not clean. And this is how the hypocrites wants to turn Muslims into this. this kind of a way of living. They want to turn the houses of believers into dirt and filth. And we see that the British deep state, they want to cause this desperate situation, a grievance upon the Turkish people. They want to cause destruction. They want to bring economic crisis. This is mentioned in Surah Ali Imran, verse 118. I seek refuge in God from the accursed Satan. They will do anything to harm you. They love what causes you distress. In Surah Bakara, verse 114, who could do greater wrong than someone who bars access to the mosques of God? For example, you are communicating religion. They don't want, the hypocrites do not want the believers to speak about God. They just keep on, for instance, singing out loud. They cause commotion and all kinds of disturbance with speaking out loud, preventing his name from being remembered in them. How do they do this? They just turn on the music. Today, for instance, they cause commotion, they carry out empty talk, preventing his name from being remembered in them, and goes about destroying them. So they want to bring destruction in the mosques of believers. They want to turn the mosques of believers into places where the believers cannot use. This is the evil that is perpetrated by the hypocrites. They want to bar access to the mosques of God, the masjids of God.
Gene münafık ahlakına Allah dikkat çekiyor Nahl suresi 76'da. Bunlardan birisi dilsiz diyor. Bak iki kişi diyor. Bunlardan biri dilsiz.
In Surah Nahl verse 76,
her şeyini başkasına yaptırmak ister. Ve her şeyin efendisinin üstüne bir yük, Müslümanların başına bela olmak ister.
God makes another metaphor, two men, one of them deaf and dumb, unable to do anything, a burden on his master. So the hypocrite does not want to bring any goodness, any benevolence to the believers. They only want to cause distress upon the believers. This is just like the Samri and Harun and the 300 hypocrites living at the time of the Prophet. No matter where he directs them, he brings no good. For example, the Prophet says, just go there and do something. He causes troubles over and over again. No matter where he directs him, he brings no good. So the hypocrite is a trouble upon believers everywhere.